Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan selamat kembali ke siri Youth Foresight Forum bersama saya Faiz Nakib. Jika dulu sebelum ni kita membincangkan mengenai pendidikan perundangan ataupun pengajian perundangan, hari ini kita akan membincangkan mengenai masa depan pendidikan secara umumnya. Jadi dengan itu, sebelum saya memperkenalkan tetamu-tetamu kehormat kita pada hari ini, ingin saya sampaikan kepada para penonton kita bahawasanya forum ini dijalankan dalam dua bahasa, English dan juga bahasa Malaysia. Jadi sekiranya anda ada sebarang soalan, typekan soalan tersebut di ruangan komen. Selagi mana ianya dalam kedua-dua bahasa tersebut, kami tiada masalah. Jadi untuk meneruskan perbincangan kita hari ini, I think it is a really huge privilege. It's a huge honor to be sharing the screen with our guest today. First of all, she's the first Malaysian to launch a NASA satellite to space. Obtaining her PhD from Purdue University, she's involved as the university's principal investigator in the SPORSAT project, where eventually it was a part of NASA's mission to Mars. With that, saya kenalkan Dr. Wan Wardatul Amani Wan Salim. Assalamualaikum Doktor.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi. Assalamualaikum semua. Ramadan Karim Ramadan
Karim.
Muka-muka lapar semua ni kan.
Petang-petang cakap orang putih ni, orang faham Boleh
Tak apa, kita borak dua-dua insya-Allah. Cuba nak jadi profesional sikit.
Boleh. Sakit.
Tapi Dr. Amani juga sekarang ni adalah assistant professor di Biotechnology Engineering Department of IUM. Terima kasih Doktor sebab sudi join kita pada hari ini. Seterusnya, beliau merupakan student PhD di Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia dan sekarang merangkap jawatan Vice President of ABIM, Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia. Beliau juga merupakan kadang-kadang Melayu bahasa Inggeris campur-campur sikit lah. He is also an activist who has been involved in many issues in regards to our education system, including PPSMI, and as well as the topic of today, which is future of our own education. With that, I would like to introduce Encik Radin Muhammad Imaduddin Radin Abdul Halim.
Terima kasih Faiz.
Alhamdulillah. Saya panggil tuan ke Encik?
Panggil Cikgu Radin pun boleh lah.
Cikgu Radin lah. Okay, Cikgu Radin cantik sikit lah. Alright. Jadi terima kasih. Thank you so much to both of our guests for joining us today. I think it's a huge honor. Both of you are in your house or in campus or?
In my home office lah.
Oh, home office.
Saya berada di Taski.
Oh, Taski.
Sebab dekat Taski ada line internet baik. Kat rumah kampung kat saya tak ada internet.
Jadi itu pun satu.
Yes.
That's a good point juga, nanti kita boleh bincang. Alright. Jadi sebelum kita mulakan, before we proceed with our discussion today, again I would like to remind the audience, if you have any questions, please write down in the comment section below. And nevertheless, let's start our discussion. So, COVID-19, PKP, extension 12 Mei. How was it, Doktor dengan Cikgu? Are you guys okay with that?
Baik untuk masyarakat lah Kalau sekolah, daripada perspektif sekolah sudah tentu kita nakkan kepastian bahawa anak-anak kita bila ke sekolah kembali dia dalam keadaan yang bersih supaya tidak lagi terjebak ataupun terjangkit dengan COVID-19 ni. You nak buat social distancing kepada anak-anak sekolah rendah, sekolah menengah, sekolah rendah terutamanya, it's a nightmare.
Macam mana Dr. Amani pula?
Well, my MCO has been very productive. In terms of saya punya kerja lah kan. Because this time is a time where I think we reflect back on diri kita. Okay, orang kata muhasabah lah. Kita ada masa muhasabah dan tengok diri kita dan peranan kita dalam masyarakat. Jadi at this time is when I look at the condition COVID-19 Malaysia, and during this MCO time is a time where I connected with my fellow academics and we are working on technology for the country to build local capacities. So from a lot of things lah, macam from PPEs production, building local capacity, to even development of revolutionizing the RTKs, rapid testing kits. So we have meeting with a lot lah, MOSTI lah, macam-macam lah. So this is the time where I feel that the potential of the young academics and academics in general is tested on how we solve the issue of COVID-19 for negara.
Alhamdulillah.
So, and of course, as pandangan as Brother Radin juga, the same thing as dealing with my students. Of course, as lecturers, we have postgraduate students. And also I have undergraduate students who are stuck in the dormitories. Okay. Some of these are also international students, just let you know. So kalau kita fikir pasal pendidikan ni bukan sekadar local students but also brothers sisters kita daripada negara-negara lain. Jadi one of the thing that I do, I'm not the type who wait for top down punya instruction. Right away I make sure that my students follow a schedule. Artinya dia tak macam dalam keadaan limbo, tak tahu buat apa. They have a mission. I give them a mission. I give them a proper task and proper things that they need to achieve during this MCO. So because of that, semangat dia tinggi lah. Pak Izan?
Alhamdulillah. Saya pun student dekat IUM juga, tapi kita orang rasa bersyukur sikit lah sebab universiti tangguhkan semester, jadi tak adalah mereka yang tak ada internet tu ketinggalan. Tapi that's also an interesting view. I think that's an interesting point yang di-raise by Dr. Amani dengan Encik Radin in regards to macam mana nak handle student. Jadi disebabkan itu jugalah kita lihat kebanyakan student sekarang dah dekat pangkuan keluarga masing-masing. Cuma adalah sebahagian daripada kami yang masih lagi di kampus tersangkut di sini. Jadi mungkin maybe we can proceed with the first question. Before we discuss about the future, let's talk about today. So it's COVID-19, it's currently locked down. So maybe our panels today, our guests can give their own personal view or observation in regards to the steps taken by our education institution during this MCO period. So maybe Cikgu Radin nak start dulu?
Terima kasih Faiz. So basically since the MCO phase 1 early March, actually MOE has released circular or guidelines on how to handle classes during this MCO. So it includes the rules for school administrators, teachers, parents, and the student as well. And then number 2, the MOE also has launched has relaunched. I have the word. They have already the TV Pendidikan, but now they relaunched the TV Pendidikan channel through the national TV station and TV OK as a new kind of implementation. Maksudnya kali ini dengan lebih segar, TV Pendidikan dengan lebih segar kontennya. Okay, number 3, for sure as MOE, national schools level, MOE actually has already their digital learning platform. They call it Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams package, and it can be used for the whole nation, for the whole national schools. Basically, this Google Classroom is a new kind of platform which substituting the previous platform. Previously, we have what we call VLE Frog. This one under One Bestari Net initiative under previous administration. It's been there long time. I think dah sampai 10 tahun dah. Memang dah lama. Ini maksudnya dari segi Kementerian Pendidikan, we have prepared all the basic need for digital learning. Okay. And number 4, in term of content pula, in term of content of teaching, the lessons, etc. MOE also has their EduWeb TV, and also they also teacher initiative platform, what we call the CikguTube.net.
Banyak.
Memang banyak, sebenarnya banyak. Banyak.
Wow.
CikguTube.net. This is teachers themselves initiate this kind of platform web where they collect the teaching videos and put that in the CikguTube.net. Okay, so in terms of preparation, actually we have already, I mean the infrastructure has already been there for the last 10 years. Okay, but the issue is during this MCO, it is been rapidly used, terpaksa guna. Sebelum ni ada tapi jarang-jarang digunakan. Sampai ada isu kerajaan belanja berjuta ringgit tapi tidak digunakan. Okay, tapi this kind of MCO is the time for the teachers to use it rapidly, dipaksa gunakan, dipaksa belajar, terpaksa belajar in order for them to connect and communicate with their students. Okay, and number two, but actually, what I can say is that it's good for the national schools, dekat sekolah kebangsaan, sekolah menengah kebangsaan. But for private school, that is not the case. In private schools, either in preschoolers or in primary schools, they have issues. They have issues because they don't have this. They depend totally on their school commonly communicate macam biasa lah. Tapi bila keadaan MCO, they face big trouble. Kemudian timbullah isu tuition fees, nak bayar ke tidak, tadika contohnya. So ni isu-isu yang timbul selepas tu. But okay, this is the thing. However, teachers and parents actually don't buy the idea of home-based learning yet, even though they are learning from home. Okay, this is the thing. They bring back the culture of the common classroom teaching and learning session to the home using digital. Maksudnya, the culture of home-based learning, the culture of digital learning is not there yet. Walaupun sebenarnya pembelajaran itu berlaku. Akhirnya apa yang berlaku? The pedagogy is not fused into the cybergogy. Jadi timbullah masalah-masalah seperti tak tahu macam mana nak handle student, nak tanda kertas, homework yang terlalu banyak, sampai parent pun boleh bising hari-hari ada homework. Sebab basically that's how they do it in the school, but actually it's not the way on how you do it in term of digital learning. So the problem is the pedagogy is not yet fused into the cybergogy. Yeah, so I think it is the kind of what happening today. Okay.
Terima kasih Cikgu Radin. I think it's really interesting when you point out about one. First of all, is that there are initiatives that has been implemented by the MOE throughout these years, especially in regards to on integrating digital platform into the current syllabus. Yeah. But then again, like as you said before, I think it's more like the attitude approaching in the usage of such initiative or such platform that actually inhibits the learning process itself, because how you teach in a class and how you teach through a screen is two different things that I think like people should understand a bit. Yeah. Thank you so much, Cikgu Radin. How about Dr. Amani? Maybe in perspective of like higher education, university macam tu.
Okay, I like to start that in terms of higher education, I think that a lot of lecturers have been using platforms such as Google Classroom and so forth. Some using it more than others. It depends on their comfort level and so forth in using this technology. For me, for instance, I've been using it for a long time, especially that I have lecturers from the United States to give talks to my students in my classrooms. But one key issue is when you talk about e-learning or to replace it cannot replace face-to-face. Okay, dua benda yang berbeza. Interaction dengan even dengan anak ke kita punya anak murid and so forth. In face-to-face interaction is different, and I'm talking to Brother Radin and Brother Faiz right now. It's also different when you see him in person, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, I agree with Brother Radin is that the translation of the people who's used to the face-to-face learning to the e-learning is actually satu transition yang besar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dia bukan direct macam tu. So you cannot have, say for example, okay, cikgu A ataupun lecturer A, you have to transfer everything overnight. Okay, it won't happen. It has to gradually happen though, because this is the time for us to think about policies, plan tindakan untuk apa tahu? Untuk waktu-waktu yang krisis, bukan sekadar COVID-19. Apakah krisis yang sentiasa berada di Malaysia? Selalu every year. Flood. Education during crisis, macam flood. COVID-19 is one crisis. Therefore, the key thing pada pandangan saya ialah pelan tindakan tau for education during crisis. Itu first pada pandangan saya. In terms of pengalaman di IPTAs, saya di Universiti Islam Antarabangsa macam Brother Faiz juga kan. Of course, universities everywhere. Ini benda yang pertama dia orang hadapi. Betul tak? Where administrators, top management are forced to think beyond what they know. Okay? Beyond what they're comfortable with. So, benda-benda macam MQA and so forth kena rethink now.
Yeah.
It's not going to be business as usual. And if you heard from Angela Merkel, Germany, dia directly cakap dia kata the new normal ni yang kita hadapi sekarang ni, COVID-19 is going to live with us for a long, long time. It's not going to be solved after Raya tau.
Yeah.
Vaccines development takes, minimum maybe 18 months or more. Who knows? Right? So therefore, kita sekarang, especially those, not just the people in the management, but also lecturers like me, students like Faiz, teachers like Brother Radin, kita kena ada satu mentality shift yang sangat-sangat luas, yang tinggi. Because these things are uncomfortable to many people. Okay? Including myself as a lecturer, as a teacher. Okay? So coming back to whether kita punya university, okay, langkah-langkah telah diambil. Kalau di Malaysia ni, sebab saya ada satu group di mana saya panggil group saya ni Avengers. Where dia dipenuhi oleh lecturer-lecturer daripada USM dan sebagainya, UC Malaysia, Sarawak, Sabah dan sebagainya. So we have a discussion apa pengalaman mereka sebagai lecturers and how does administrators dealt with the situation as a university. So when I look, for example, USM take a step where right away face-to-face interaction dah tak ada sampai the end of year. Okay, they're already on e-learning since April. Ni according to kawan saya lah. Okay, some people are still receiving a Google punya questionnaire. Okay, some university masih menerima Google questionnaire tau. Are you comfortable with e-learning ke tak? And so forth. Okay, just today I dah receive macam mana kita nak handle kita punya instructions nak convert from the face-to-face to the e-learning. There's also workshops given by centers for learning and instruction ni kan, to basically train lecturers and so forth towards e-learning. Now, here's the hurdle. Mari kita tengok satu-satu. Okay? One, saya nak cakap reality because kita kalau nak solve problems kita kena cakap reality.
Yes,
the
facts.
reality is when I use e-learning for my students, even pre-COVID, before COVID-19, the first thing I ask ni, boleh tak Dr. Amani tengok laptop masing-masing? Ada students dia sangat, doktor, saya tak ada laptop, doktor.
Okay.
Okay, I ada 3 extra laptop in case student tak ada laptop. Which is, I lend to the student to be able to use. Tak apalah, classes I kecil. Imagine lecturers yang handle 120 students and so forth. Right? Trying to do this type of instructions. Okay, itu satu, kelengkapan. On the ground, number one, whether there's infrastructure, whether there's technology and so forth readily available for students to use. Number satu. Kedua, you talk about 5G or whatever tadi tu kan, connectivity. Kalau dia balik kampung ke, tak payah balik kampung lah, kadang-kadang dekat dorm pun. Okay, I took 30 minutes to get them connected. Kadang-kadang lengah dah. Okay, ini susah sini, mikrofon tak on and so forth because people are not trained. Okay, students are not used to it. But the new norm has to train. Itu number 2. Number 3 is this. Whether the instructor themselves are ready and comfortable, right, to face this screen tau. Okay, sekarang ni you record I kan, you nak record, letak dalam video bagi student tengok. For students with no conductivity, you kena buat video yang orang boleh access later on. Betul tak? Comfort with the screen and so forth is also a sort of like a leap for a lot of lecturers. Okay, for a lot of people who teach, because they're used to the face-to-face learning, right? Other also like Brother Radin cakap, resistant to mentality shift ni. Dia punya opinion of the technology. Dia rasa macam, I'm not comfortable with this, therefore I'm not. So that's why there were surveys and so forth sent by university to know these conditions. Okay, the last one is critical, which is the content. Face-to-face learning content and assessment translated to the online, that is not a day, 2 weeks effort. Itu macam, you need sort of like a continuous effort going on. But then if we don't start now, it takes COVID-19 for us to start. Betul tak Faiz?
Itu betul sangat.
Okay, so itu I punya senario lah cakap sekarang for the current situation. Okay, I give it to you.
Alright, terima kasih. Thank you so much, Dr. Amani. I'm really interested in regards to the fact when you're talking about comfort with screen, right? And maybe in regards to kelengkapan tu sendiri, masalah kelengkapan tu sendiri, I see like these are issues that are in essence are glaring in difference. One in regards to the capacity, basically the ability of the student itself. Maybe their background is the reason why it's hard for them to follow through with this new norm or this new way of learning. But at the same time also we see like there's also an attitude, again not attitude, more like personality shift, because before this, if a lecturer is teaching in front, they're able to convey, even some small quirks are able to influence students. But then when you're on screen, right, there's always this even though you're face to face, but then again you cannot transfer that charm, that charisma, you see. So at the end of the day, it will influence how students approach e-learning itself. For them, it's more like, oh, this is just a video. This is not the lecturer teaching me. This is a video teaching me. So I think that on that note, maybe let's move on. Let's talk about the future then. Maybe to Cikgu Radin, right? So you were talking about mentality shift. Mentality shift from the actual world to the digital world. So this current pandemic has shown on probably the strength and the weakness of our education system. So the current syllabus, the current method that is being implemented within schools in Malaysia or within the education sector in general, are these the ones that we perceive to be the future of our education, or it should be more or should be less? Maybe Cikgu Radin can elaborate.
So I can say that this is the new beginning, the new dawn of exploring the cyberpedagogy as the main means to deliver and to teach the students, because it takes time. Tapi kalau tak mula sekarang, bila? Jadi ini adalah waktu yang sangat berharga untuk kita mulakan. Because we talk about digital learning, e-learning since decades ago.
It's forever.
Ya, sangat lama. Dan Malaysia dah bayar berjuta ringgit for this. But you know, that kind of mentality need to change. Number one. Okay. So I foresee that first the teacher have to set the mindset that this is not just for the MCO, because I don't know, when they going back to the school, common school daily basis, what's going to do? What's going to happen? Is it they are going to proceed this kind of digital learning ataupun back to square one? Okay, so that one we'll see. As is now, adakah bagus sangat? Is it perfect? No. Jauh, it's far. It's far from the ideal of digital learning and home-based learning. The way I see it, teachers are still framing themselves as the source of the information, okay, which is also not the ideal of the what we call the 21st century teaching and learning. Yeah, so it's not the way how to do it, okay. And of course, the mentality bukan apa, sebab mentality parents pun sama juga. Mentality parents and the student also the same. They want the teachers to fill the gap. So the dependency to the teachers is
still
very much high because of the parents and the students itself. Jadi cikgu nak berubah pun payah sebenarnya. Sebab cikgu ni kebanyakannya dia makan gaji kan. Kita ni kalau KPM tak bagi something yang serius, dan susah juga nak buka. Tapi bagus juga sebab tahun ni baru-baru ni bila Menteri Kanan Pendidikan kita maklumkan menghapuskan, bukan menangguhkan tau, menghapuskan tahun ini no UPSR and PT3, which is a very brave and bold move for the Malaysia. So sekarang teachers, students pun panik pun tak panik, dia macam kaget lah, istilah dia stun. So what? So how? Jadi kawan-kawan pun tanya, anak-anak tanya, jadi kami ni belajar untuk apa? See, that kind of question happen.
Yes.
Kami belajar untuk apa? No guys, anak-anakku sekalian, you are not learning for UPSR PT3, tak ada UPSR pun okey, tak apa, teruskan belajar. So kita pula kena ceritakan kepada anak-anak kita, our students, that this is not the way how to do. You learn not for UPSR PT3, no, it's not like that. Okay? Okay, number 3 ya?
Tiga.
Number 4 dah. Okay, bagusnya MCO ni. Satu lagi ialah parents now they are more realized on their children's development. This is something that I can say that this is quite a marvel thing to do and to continue. Sebab sebelum ni parents menganggap anak dia boleh buat semua. Lepas tu bila balik sekarang, bila dia sendiri yang mengajar anak dia, dia rasa awak ni darab pun tak tahu ni. Jadi basic thing kata, kau belajar apa kat sekolah sebenarnya? Jadi that kind of question datang balik. Sebab tengok result okey je, tapi bila you tanya sendiri soalan basic question, dia tak tahu. Maknanya pengetahuan itu, dan sekarang ini kita melihat bahawa parents are knowing their children better compared to previously. Okay? Well, that's a good thing lah. So apa? So parents akan offer their extra help. Macam-macam formula keluar daripada bapak dia kan. Cikgu tak ajar pun cara ni kan. Tak apalah bapak ajar cara ni. So what I'm saying is that the ideas of the 21st century teaching and learning session must be much more learning, less teaching. Ini the ideal. Tapi it's not happening yet. Okay. So the idea is that the teacher should give more task-based instead of homework-based. You have to empower students to self-explore, and they have to collaborate and communicate to their peers, with their peers, rather than homework-based ni. Homework-based ni biasanya cikgu kena ajar kat kelas one by one, procedural, A to Z, and then in the end give the homework. Okay. Kalau tu ada isu dan ada masalah timbul, dia overloaded and as we see it today lah, parent pun bising, Sebab itu adalah kaedah yang sepatutnya telah berubah lama tapi kita masih amalkan di sekolah. Dan bila kita masuk peringkat MCO, we are still using it. Cuma bezanya kali ini ada digital. Yang lagi kita tak familiar. Jadi dua masalah, double jeopardy lah. Okay. And lastly, I want to talk about the ideal of home-based learning. Okay. Home-based learning ataupun HBL ni ialah student using the home environment includes their IT technology, okay, to learn, which means that the schedules of the learning cannot be the same as when they learn in the school environment.
Betul.
This is very important to understand. Tak boleh sebab ada arahan daripada pihak sekolah kena ada jadual. Pukul 9, pukul 10 subjek ni, pukul 10 sampai pukul 11 subjek ni, pukul 11 sampai 12 subjek ni. Macam sekolah.
Yelah.
Which is tak boleh.
Boleh.
Tak boleh begitu. It cannot be like that. So kali ini arahan rasmi daripada sekolah, daripada PPD. So
Tak boleh.
agak malang lah apabila pihak, I mean they should know better kan. Tapi akhirnya bila benda tu menurun, akhirnya yang terbeban adalah sekolah, cikgu, anak-anak. Okay, so the idea for now, the idea for the MCO learning in a home-based learning environment is that to keep the momentum of learning to be continuous.
Betul.
That is the important thing. Not to penalize if they do the job.
Betul.
Not to keep on submitting the assignment, etc. So that's totally different kind of approach. Okay, and I would like to share 4 key ideas of home-based learning. Number 1, mistakes are okay. It helps to learn. So waktu inilah anak-anak boleh buat mistakes tanpa diberikan penalty. Number 2, home-based learning is not about gadget. It can be online and also offline.
Betul.
Okay. Number 3, home-based learning ni also is a bonding time with family. That's the most important thing. Number 4, HBL is about getting the students to be independent and responsible. Ini sangat penting. Dan number 5, HBL is about learning beyond formal curriculum. Ini yang kadang-kadang cikgu kita pun kadang-kadang dah biasa dengan silibus rasmi kerajaan, kurikulum kebangsaan. Dia lupa ini adalah home-based learning. Home-based learning digunakanlah apa yang ada dekat rumah ni untuk belajar. Tak perlulah nak cari lagi, buat lagi. So in the end you are making yourself busy with the things that you shouldn't do. Okay, itulah Faiz.
Kalau terima kasih Cikgu Radin. It's really interesting in regards to what you see key features of home-based learning. Kalau saya nak letak analogi lah tentang yang bahagian last Dr. Cikgu cakap tadi tu. Saya ingat lagi masa sekolah rendah, bila saya ingat kalau saya nak belajar math je wajib ada buku yang kotak-kotak tu. Tak boleh ada buku lain tu. Sebab like mindset kita orang adalah kalau kau ada buku lain kau tak boleh belajar math. Kau cuma boleh belajar esei je. Kau tak boleh tulis apa tu semua. So kalau kau nak belajar math kena cari mana buku nota, buku kosong, buku kotak-kotak kosong tu barulah boleh buat math, barulah boleh belajar matematik. Jadi nampak ada satu fokus yang terlalu terlalu fokus kepada platform yang digunakan rather than content yang cuba disampaikan. To the extent that macam yang tadi saya tertarik dengan yang Cikgu Radin tadi cakap mengenai macam mana attitude certain student kita bila PT3 dengan SPM dah cancel, terus tertanya like okay, selama ni kita belajar tu apa. Sebab saya sendiri mungkin saya boleh relate sikit sebab saya punya adik-adik saya, sibling saya, dua dekat peringkat menengah sekarang ni, seorang di SBP, seorang lagi di MRSM, seorang PT3, seorang SPM. And bila cancel tu memang dua-dua tu kat rumah pisang. Mereka sendiri pun like okay, sekarang dah cancel nak buat apa Jadi untuk saya punya own like, saya rasa saya sangat suka lah bila Cikgu Radin tekankan that particular point. Kita nampak like the appreciation of knowledge itself is a mindset or basically it's an attitude yang masih lagi lacking dalam kalangan dalam kita punya community lagi setakat ni. Jadi dia cakap mengenai tadi kita dah cakap pasal home based learning, right? Kita tak boleh samakan home dengan school. But then like kita lihat sekarang kebanyakan student menggunakan platform untuk shift that role daripada sekolah ke rumah sebiji-biji. Jadi mungkin saya tanya soalan ni kepada Dr. Amani, right? Sejauh mana kita kalau Dr. Amani nak elaborate secara keseluruhan secara umum, sejauh mana kita dari segi teknologi, dari segi mindset, dari segi mentality, sejauh mana kita telah ke hadapan untuk saya rasa cikgu dengan doktor dah tahu sangat familiar dengan falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan kita. Jadi how does kita punya current progress, kita punya current mindset, kita punya current capacity teknologi itu semua membantu dalam menjayakan aspirasi falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan kita ni?
Okay. Jadi for me apa-apa pun kita go back to basics. Okay. Mengapa tujuan kita belajar? Mengapa kita menimba ilmu? Okay. Sometimes what I see is that even di peringkat IPT, we have lost that. Kita mengejar nak habis syllabus. Kita nak fulfill MQA requirements and so forth. Let me tell you something. During pandemic like COVID-19, things have to be flexible. Betul tak?
Ya.
Di mana, saya bagi contoh saya banyak bercakap dengan cikgu-cikgu, macam Cikgu Radin ni. These teachers are on the ground. Saya suka bercakap dengan orang on the ground. Because mereka yang pergi tengok B40 punya education. Okay? Bila kita cakap pasal dia nak belajar dekat rumah, condition B40 punya living tu kita kena tengok. Satu. Apa di keliling kita, tak kira lah B40 ke, M40 ke, T20 ke. Okay? How can we learn from our surrounding? This is very important. Because kalau saya belajar di United States dengan saya belajar di Afrika, takkan nak letak konteks sama.
Yeah.
Because orang di United States tu conditionnya lain. Okay? Even in the form of e-learning and so forth, like Brother Radin cakap tadi, it's not new. Even universities such as Harvard and MIT, they have predicted. Okay? Universities ni akan jadi obsolete if kita tak ubah. Ubah segi apa? Lambda School for example, dah total e-learning. Students can get degree, dia kata guaranteed jobs at Google, Apple and so forth. Ni universiti-universiti kena compete Universiti yang 4 year ni, you imagine kau belajar 2-3 tahun je, kau boleh dapat kerja di Google, Apple. Bagi contoh if Harvard, MIT semua refuse nak ubah, where do you think they end up 5-10 years later? Okay? Because kena tengok keadaan 21st century ni. Learning kita. Ekonomi kita tak macam berapa tahun dulu. Okay? The oil price going down, things are changing. Okay? Therefore, education, most important is dia kena flexible. To be adapt to the changing yang rapid ni, cepat. Okay? Katakanlah kita kena tunggu lama dulu baru kita nak do a change, right? Cannot. Okay? And COVID-19 is a situation yang menunjukkan keadaan reality. Sebenar sama ada pendidikan kita ready or not. Betul tak, Brother Radin?
Ya.
Baru kita tahu, ready ke tak. Baru kita tahu, ya Allah kata, suddenly you can't do face-to-face learning. Now you have to do the e-learning. What about students who don't have laptop? Mula kita terfikir dah. Yeah. Bagaimana student you duduk kampung tak ada internet connection? Alamak, internet connection is not great in our country. At some parts of our country. How do we address that? So semua problem and issues ni come up during COVID-19. Okay, so some of the things that I found lah, yang for example, before WHO kata COVID-19 ni pandemic, Harvard dah right away suruh student go full e-learning, leave campus tau.
Oh.
If you read about it, before WHO dah announce, itu United States lah, MIT and so forth follow through. Okay. Some other countries macam UK and Australia, UK more lenient approach, Australia ada approach dia, but of course daripada keadaan macam ni, student-student affected. Contohnya, student-student yang menganggap universiti tu, tempat dorm tu sebagai rumah mereka. Bila dia balik kampung, dia tak boleh belajar tau. Internet tak ada, dia rasa macam tu. Jadi kembali kepada apa Brother Radin cakap tadi. Apakah itu pembelajaran? What is learning? What is education? Is it about having the technology, the pretty syllabus? Or is it about, I give you an example, okay, masa kita pergi tengok keadaan COVID-19, you put a bunch of students and said, look, instead of kita belajar ABC, kita fikir macam mana kita nak solve keadaan negara sekarang. Because situation dia macam tu dekat dorm if Brother Faiz punya condition, how do you make sure that your opinions as student is heard by the policy makers? That is learning also, Faiz Dapat A dalam kelas semua is just not the measure of your learning. Okay?
Ya, betul.
Betul tak? So, and also for example, kita kena evaluate assessment kita. Macam Brother Radin cakap macam ni.
Assessment
Does our A, B, C grades kita bagi tu really shows that the students learn? Right? If for example, saya tengok lah, one of my mentors said, students dia, masa tu dia tengah solve isu ni tau, air di Palestine. Student-student daripada Purdue University, dia bawa pergi situ tau. Solve isu air di Palestine. Okay? They did an interview with the student and they asked, okay, apa yang dia orang belajar? Dia kata, they learn more than they learn in a year at school. About water irrigation system, condition, geopolitical, interdisciplinary learning, right? They learn from people yang berbagai-bagai bidang. Okay? How do you assess that? Nak cakap Brother Faiz dengan Brother Radin. When that is impactful learning, impactful education, right? Instead of tick checklist kata, I receive an A. After that, you nak buat apa? Dengan the A that you put in your transcript, right? The key test is whatever qualifications you have, PhD ke, masters ke, all the A's you have, how do you translate it to solve the problems? Starting di mana tau? Community kita. Okay? So when I talk about learning education, 21st century learning, kita dah kena ubah. Fleksibel, kita kena tengok keadaan situasi negara. Bagaimana kita nak utilize brain power lecturer cikgu-cikgu ni untuk membangunkan bakat-bakat yang terpendam yang tidak boleh dimeasure oleh A grades alone. Okay, therefore activities boleh buat dalam bentuk task. Okay, for example, I found ni clear as a lecturer, student dapat A 4.0 I suruh student bawah 3.0 buat task yang sama. Okay, you have to design a sensor. Ini requirement dia A, B, C, D. Okay, the A is not a measure of a success to do that. It's the student who's able to use resources keliling lah. Dia kata use resources keliling ni to create something meaningful. Itu lebih penting. Macam saya juga, saya balik, saya tak ada apa facility jenazah I don't have $1 million facility. Saya tak berada di research university USM ke Universiti Malaya. But does that stop me as a lecturer in UIA to do something meaningful for masyarakat? No. Even it makes you more creative because you tak ada all the facilities. You kata, okay, macam mana saya nak guna benda di keliling saya untuk create something meaningful. For me, as an engineer lah, when I ask my NASA bosses lah, dia kata apa tau? A great engineer, someone who can use anything around them to create something meaningful. Brother Faiz dan Brother Radin, kita kena ingat benda tu. Artinya kita kena empower, kita punya B40 even though you have that small flat of yours. Small resources, you don't have money like the T20. But guess what? What Allah gave all of us, ni Ramadan nak cakap ni, is brain kita. Yeah. Kita ingenuity as a human being to be able to create, to be able to think, to be able to learn with the capacity and surrounding and constraints that we have around us. Jadi bagi saya itulah sebenarnya pendidikan yang perlu dilahirkan di kalangan masyarakat kita.
Terima kasih Dr. Amani. Ya. Okay. Sabar ya. Macam like there's so much to take in right now. Whew. But then again, I really like the fact that Doctor emphasized on impactful education. You see, it's not about teaching people to know more, but teaching people to contribute more. So I thank you so much, Dr. Amani, for that insight. I think like it's real. There's so many things here, but then again as well. Okay, there is a comment here from our live stream that I kind of want to highlight, or maybe what he's saying is that this is from Nazaruddin Surah. He's saying that, okay, my feeling, this e-learning will be the future norm. Study from home and distance from the teachers, lecturers will eventually not be a problem. Someone have to develop proper system whereby every interested students can easily follow and eventually improve to gain its full benefits. So daripada pandangan Nazaruddin ini, what happened, Encik ke apa? Saya tak nampak. Daripada pandangan Nazaruddin ini, kita nampak ada keperluan untuk create satu sistem untuk mereka yang berminat. Untuk student yang berminat, yang ada more appreciation of knowledge untuk follow pembelajaran tu sendiri. Tapi daripada statement beliau ni, saya sebenarnya ada satu soalan, mungkin antara pihak cikgu ataupun Dr. Amani nak ulas. So mana yang lebih utama sekarang ni untuk kita prepare ke masa depan pendidikan kita? Ubah sistem atau ubah mindset? Jadi satu yang lebih utama, sebab macam like tadi Cikgu Radin cakap pasal home based learning, macam mana home based learning ini berlaku, dan macam mana Dr. Amani juga tekankan bagaimana kita kena go back to basic. Bila go back to basic, kita kena tahu balik kenapa kita belajar and apa tujuan kita belajar. Jadi kita nampak dekat sini ada satu menekankan mengenai sistem, satu menekankan mengenai mindset. Jadi mana satu yang Cikgu Radin, Dr. Amani rasa lebih utama ataupun yang lebih realistik untuk diutamakan pada waktu ini?
Saya punya pandangan, saya bagi pandangan
yeah.
I've been in a lot of systems. Saya ni primary school dekat Scotland, lepas tu saya balik, saya pergi sekolah kebangsaan, lepas tu saya pergi SBP, lepas tu saya pergi United States. Macam-macam sistem kita telah berada dalam. Okay, some of us have been through 2-3 types of system. But let me tell you, it's not the system yang membuatkan seseorang berjaya. It's the individual, diri kita. Maksudnya, kalau saya bagi contoh, ada adik seorang ni, adik Izzatul, dia anak angkat Mara, dia College Mara Seremban sekarang. Rumah dia tak ada apa-apa tau, lantai tanah. Okay, straight A's SPM. Okay, nak kata dekat dia straight A's SPM, anak B40. Okay, tak ada apa di rumah, tetapi kerana keinginan dia tu, dia dapat semangat. Sebab dia nampak artikel saya dalam berita harian ke apa yang saya pergi buat NASA ni, dia potong, dia letak depan dia punya meja, dia kata saya nak berjaya. Therefore, sistem memanglah kalau kita nak ubah, kan Brother Radin tahu kan, it's not an overnight thing tau. Kita ni macam-macam dah anak murid kita ni lalui macam-macam, sekejap macam ni punya exam, sekejap ubah, dia orang pun dah celaru macam-macam dah di peringkat. Dan kami lecturer pula menerima hasil kerja daripada sekolah rendah and so forth ni, sekolah menengah, to go into the system, so everything gets aggravates. For me, I think pada pandangan saya is the key thing ialah manusia itu sendiri. Okay, dalam apa keadaan sistem. Saya dulu kat United States, masa mula masuk first undergrad degree, susah nak adapt sebab tak biasa dengan sistem. Tapi kerana diri sendiri itu kita nak belajar. Okay, therefore Allah ni dia bagi manusia ni, dia ada dia punya semangat tu dalam everyone. So for me, education is not just about aku baca syllabus dapat A, tapi mengeluarkan semangat tu yang regardless of who you are, background you apa, is that if you nak berjaya, you go. You berjaya. Okay, so dalam keadaan adik Izzatul tu memang case lah, which there's a lot of cases B40 berjaya, betul tak Brother Radin? The key thing is kita nak masyarakat lebih tahu adik-adik yang berjaya yang bukan daripada anak-anak orang kaya ke apa pun. Tapi mereka boleh berjaya. How did they do it? Okay, sistem sama aja. Sekolah kebangsaan ke anak I go sekolah kebangsaan juga. Sekolah saya pergi sekolah menengah juga di tempatan. Tapi how do people get into one stage to another is basically bagi saya starts from mana tau? Starts from where they are as a person and parents dia. Cikgu ni boleh ajar macam-macam tau. Saya boleh jadi the best lecturer. Brother Radin boleh jadi the best teacher. But saya lah duk baca banyak buku is the starting years of education where environment matters, you know, where they are matters. So if you put yourself in a B40, the key for us all to think is how do we make, kalau you address the B40, you akan address M40, T20. Seriously. You address yang paling underprivileged, you will address the privileged people. If you address privilege saja, you akan lupa yang B40. Betul tak, Brother Radin? Kita akan lupa. So, for me, kalau I nak solve problem, I tengok anak murid I yang paling mencabar dalam kelas. Kalau I boleh solve problem anak murid tu, satu kelas saya boleh solve. Okay? So, for me, is about the person, the mentality. Yes, a system, of course, gradually needs to change. But with people who has more mentality shift, kita akan lama-lama push system juga.
Betul, ya.
Right? Kalau saya as Dr. Mani kata kau kena ubah sistem sekarang, people will say, who are you? You're going to change the how. We don't have resources, we don't have this, we don't have that. So the key things now is to build manusia. Right? I go with my rector lah, Tan Sri Zul dia selalu pergi kepada manusia, right? So for me, I agree with that because you have to go to humanity, you have to go to the person, right? So that then the education, everything falls through. Technology will fall through manusia. Technology is created by manusia. Okay, when I create technology, I give example, I buat teknologi untuk orang-orang sakit. Mindset I apa tau? I was thinking on developing countries, orang-orang susah. So bila I design teknologi tu, I akan address isu orang susah dan masyarakat yang susah. Jadi cara you design the teknologi akan address benda tu. Faham tak? Jadi teknologi itu ada roh. Ada roh tau. Dia bukan sekadar robot bercakap. It's about the humanistic factor. So even technology you said just now, yang macam the comment just now said, eventually e-learning akan replace education. We don't know. Maybe, of course, it's heading towards that. We're seeing that, right? But at the same time, how do we have e-learning with a humanistic punya flavor? That is where we all should head to. Okay? Itu sajalah from me.
Okay, terima kasih Dr. Mani. Cikgu Adin, kau ada tambah apa-apa atas komen Dr. Mani?
Totally agree. Maksudnya kemanusiaan itu yang pertama, kemanusiaan itu yang akan membentuk manusia-manusia yang akhirnya akan mengubah teknologi dan konten-konten pada masa hadapan. Daripada perspektif polisi pula, saya melihat bahawa sebab nak ubah sistem ni susah. Even satu menteri nak cuba tukar pun, dia akan mendapat resistance yang cukup besar. Maksudnya politically, ada political will pun belum tentu lagi boleh berubah. Having said that, perlunya ada advokasi yang berterusan untuk menggalakkan perubahan sistem pendidikan. Kita perlu design perubahan itu, bukan dipaksa untuk berubah. Macam sekarang ni kita dipaksa. Dipaksa. Habis sebelum ni tak dipaksa ke? Memang tak ada paksaan. Kerajaan menyediakan platform-platform digital, berpulanglah untuk cikgu menggunakannya mengikut kesesuaian. Tapi cikgu tidak merasakan bahawa perlunya berubah sebab as far as that time concern, tak ada isu pun boleh je ajar cara tradisional, yet budak dapat je mudah pun. Kenapa nak buat susah-susah? Jadi tidak ada desakan apa-apa untuk perubahan. Namun bila berlaku keadaan begini, kita terpaksa berubah sebab kita dipaksa keadaan, which is for me accidentally lah. Perubahan yang bersifat accident ni, dia tidak akan sampai ke jiwa. Dia akan masih merasakan diri dia sebagai victim, sebagai mangsa, sebagai terpaksa. Ini kita kena berubah. Jadi mindset itu kena berubah bahawa apa yang kita buat ini adalah untuk perubahan pendidikan, kebaikan pada masa hadapan. Pada waktu ini, kita dapat melihat bahawa sooner or later lah, sekarang dah dapat 4 minggu dah, nampaknya cikgu dah semakin selesa, parent dah semakin selesa, anak murid pun dah semakin selesa belajar dalam platform digital. Satu benda yang kebanyakan cikgu kawan-kawan saya kata pun, kita orang tak pernah terbayang bahawa ini adalah apa yang kita boleh buat dan boleh selesai. Kerja boleh siap, silibus boleh ajar, tak payah jumpa face to face pun. Maknanya apa? Maknanya perubahan itu sedang berlaku dan akan terus berlaku. Dan katakanlah akan terus berlaku pada masa akan datang, macam COVID-19 ni mungkin akan ambil masa yang lama. Kita akan terfikir bahawa itu sekolah yang sifat dia bangunan itu yang sebesar-besar kita buat berjuta ringgit itu, universiti, college yang sebesar-besar itu, apa gunanya lagi? Kalau sekarang kita boleh selesaikan urusan itu hanya melalui digital learning.
Betul.
Maka akan timbullah pula inventor baru, ya, inisiatif baru dalam konteks membuat camp-camp yang sifatnya learning, yang orang belajar melalui YouTube kan, ingat tak isu Dr. Gigi tu kan?
Dr. Gigi tu kan?
Dr. Gigi kan, dia boleh
Gigi.
jadi mahir cek gigi orang macam Dr. Gigi dengan hanya belajar dari YouTube. Of course itu alah lah dari segi practical professionalnya, tapi yang kita nak cerita ialah kemahiran itu mereka boleh belajar. Apatah lagi pada masa akan datang macam ni kan, kita belajar melalui digital ni kan, kita berjumpa
virtual
melalui
reality.
digital ni.
Yes, virtual reality.
Virtual reality.
We can do that already. UKM baru keluarkan satu macam perkeliling lah. Lepas ni nak kena hantar kita punya thesis, nak draft everything. Even kita nak buat pembentangan pemantapan pun melalui virtual saja. Viva melalui virtual. Maksudnya kau dapat PhD, masters melalui virtual. Viva. Ini satu
Brother Radin pun nantilah PhD dia pun virtual.
Maknanya kita ada kemahiran itu, boleh dapat kemahiran itu dengan secara digital. Pada masa akan datang kemungkinan tak relevan lagi bangunan yang ada bangunan besar-besar. Sebab tu saya kata bahawa perubahan sistem itu akan berlaku juga, tapi dia akan ambil masa yang sangat lama. Kita perlu ramaikan orang yang mind shift, ajak ramai-ramai, provoke, advocate.
Exactly.
Dan insya-Allah perubahan itu perlahan-lahan akan berlangsung. Saya juga ada satu paper dan satu paper saya buat keluar jurnal bulan lepas tentang menganjak paradigma pendidikan STEM melalui pendekatan kemanusiaan. So it's very important ya. So itu ada benda yang sangat penting dalam engineering, science, maths, semuanya perlu kepada kemanusiaan.
Ya, betul.
Sebab apa tadi macam yang Dr. Amani kata, sebab yang penting ialah roh. Macam kita tak nak lagi timbul isu-isu macam contohnya sekarang ni isu kemanusiaan dianggap paling ke belakang sebab isu Rohingya contohnya. Kita cerita isu Rohingya contohnya kan. Kita marah dia kotor, dia kurang ajar, dia biadab, nak macam-macam. Tapi kita biarkan orang mati dalam perairan kita. Jadi kemanusiaan dah jadi pertimbangan yang paling akhir. Jadi ada isu tentang pendidikan kita yang kita perlu sedar patutnya menjadi kunci untuk kita bergerak sekarang, bahawa inilah kunci masa hadapan, bukan lagi tentang teknologi insya-Allah akan ada lah seorang yang akan menciptanya.
Teknologi will happen regardless.
Tak semua orang fikir pasal teknologi, adalah orang akan cipta. Kita perlu fikir macam mana kita nak isi dan guna teknologi tu.
The content of technology matters, right?
Yes.
Okay, Faiz.
Alright, terima kasih Cikgu Radin. Saya rasa saya sangat suka part entahlah, daripada dapatan saya sendiri adalah kita perlunya ada semangat untuk push diri sendiri rather than having a system yang memaksa diri kita untuk belajar. Kita kena sendiri perlu ada satu sistem yang menerapkan kepada dalam diri individu itu sendiri bahawa aku mahu belajar. Sekiranya kita dapat terapkan that semangat dalam diri kita, insya-Allah barulah kita boleh lihat ada penambahbaikan kepada sistem untuk membantu cater kepada mereka yang mungkin kurang sikit dia punya semangat untuk belajar tu sendiri. Jadi pokok pangkalnya mereka yang semangat mau belajar ni lah, mindset tu sendiri. Jadi saya tadi maklumkan kita dah hampir kehabisan masa. Jadi mungkin saya berikan like satu minit kepada each panelis kita untuk mungkin nak beri kesimpulan tentang apa itu masa depan pendidikan negara kita. Mungkin boleh mula dengan Dr. Amani.
Okay. So just to recap lah kan, technology is a means. Okay. Teknologi membantu kita menjadi produktif. Contoh macam sekarang, I don't need to travel to mana-mana to talk to Brother Radin and Brother Faiz. Okay, therefore meetings and so forth, teaching and so forth can be done at the same platform. Okay. However, it's important also to realize that we are human beings. We are social creatures by nature.
Yes.
Social creatures Maksudnya susah MCO ni nak berlaku sebab apa? Orang kita suka bergather, jumpa, bercakap, because nature human being tak boleh buang sebab kita manusia. Okay? Allah jadikan kita tu khalifah manusia dan ada sifat-sifat kita sebagai manusia. Jadi teknologi satu hal, kita sebagai manusia, human satu hal. Jadi how the human being benefit from the technology to achieve things which is more productive. Contohnya, ibu-ibu katakanlah tak perlu pergi jauh nak meeting, nak cakap 30 minit, don't need to drive for 2 hours to go to UIA nak have meeting, but instead have an e-meeting for a mother who's taking care of 3 young children. That is the purpose of technology, not to take away the humanistic value, but actually to facilitate, to accelerate things and to make things productive. So I hope that I leave that point lah with everybody. And the last one is address the people who's the most underprivileged. Sebab kita human kan? Humanistic value, address orang yang paling underprivileged. You address orang paling underprivileged, you address the whole country. Tengok apa New Zealand Jacinda Ardern. Dia punya leadership trait number 1 pertama is apa? Empathy. That's why COVID-19 fight in New Zealand berjaya. Why? Because Jacinda Ardern walaupun melalui E format, rakyat rasa terikat dengan dia, dekat dengan Jacinda Ardern, dengan pemimpin. Jadi janganlah menjadikan teknologi halangan untuk kita exercise our values as human beings. Itu saja.
Terima kasih Dr. Amani. Daripada Cikgu Radin.
Yang pertama, masa hadapan adalah tentang diri kita. Dia bukan tentang robot ke, bukan tentang teknologi. It's about us. Macam mana teknologi itu akan membantu kita menjadi yang lebih baik. Itu saja. Okay. Yang kedua, kita dah ada asas, iaitu kita ada teknologi-teknologi yang telah pun ada dan nanti akan datang pula 5G apa semua, dan kita hanya perlu gunakan teknologi itu untuk kebaikan kita dan untuk anak-anak murid kita mengikut keupayaan yang kita tahu, mengikut konteks kita. Kalau kita berada di rumah, gunakan konteks di rumah. Kalau kita berada di sekolah, kita gunakan konteks di sekolah. Dan akhir sekali, untuk kita maju ke hadapan, kita kena address gap have dengan don't have ni. Ada mereka yang tak mampu pun digital, gadget semuanya, internet. Macam saya kat kampung tak ada internet. Ada Unify, ada streaming 4 meg saja. Sangat rendah, memang tak boleh nak buat live streaming, memang tak dapat. Lepas tu berkongsi pula dengan 4 orang anak yang mana semua ada kerja rumah. Jadi jam, cram. Tak ada, tiba-tiba kami terfikir lah, tak cukup gadget rupanya kat rumah ni. Kena kongsi dengan maknya. Maknya pula cikgu nak mengajar pula anak murid. Jadi ni antara don't have dengan have ni, dia pun ada tengah-tengah je ni. Dia have tapi tak cukup. Not enough. Not enough have. So gap ni penting untuk kita faham, dan walaupun begitu kita menjadilah orang yang mampu memberi sumbangan balik semula kepada masyarakat walau apa pun platform kita. Dan itulah yang menentukan sama ada kamu itu educated, berpelajaran ataupun tidak, manusia yang bermanfaat kepada manusia yang lain. Itu saja, Faiz. Terima kasih.
Okay, terima kasih Cikgu Radin. Apa?
Hidup biar berjasa.
Terima kasih Dr. Amani, terima kasih Cikgu Radin. Jadi betul lah, masa depan pendidikan negara bukannya teknologi, bukannya e-learning, tapi adalah kita. Kita adalah masa depan negara. Macam mana kita approach masa depan kita, masa depan negara, itulah masa depan pendidikan negara kita sendiri. Jadi dengan itu, terima kasih saya ucapkan, terima kasih sangat-sangat kepada para panelis kita pada hari ini, kepada para penonton kita. Terima kasih juga kepada mereka yang Muslim. Selamat menyambut hari pertama Ramadan. InsyaAllah harap tak ada yang tewas awal. Dan juga kepada semua rakyat Malaysia secara keseluruhannya, moga selamat di rumah, moga kita dilindungi daripada sebaran penyakit COVID-19. Jadi dengan itu, terima kasih sangat-sangat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.